How are you managing all of this attention?
I'm not. I'm having it's been I had already had quite a bit of attention just because of the amount of followers I had, but not at the level and the scrutiny that I've been kind of dealing with lately. I would like to say that it's been all positive, but it hasn't been as positive as I was anticipating it would be. So I'm a very sensitive person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. So yeah, I'm trying to toughen up a bit through this.
Wow, part of this process, Tess, is learning to love you as you are. So don't
Definitely.
worry about toughing up. I'd say just be
Yeah.
you, because being you is enough.
Thank you.
Right? That's the message. Being
I'm
you is
trying.
enough. I know it's hard. So give us some examples of some of the difficult things.
Well, the Doctors, the TV show, they asked me to be on the show. Um, and they said the only way that they would have me on is if I talked about my health and showed them my blood glucose levels and like gave them a whole health panel from my doctor showing that I was healthy. And number one, that's extremely offensive. And my success, I don't think I mean, yes, my size has part to do with like why I'm my job. I'm a plus size model, obviously, but I never thought that my health would really have anything to do with any of that. So when I turned them down, they decided to do a show anyways about me and talk about how I'm promoting obesity and an unhealthy lifestyle. And then they showed a man who died from being obese, who was 600 pounds, and somehow I'm to blame for like the world being fat, which which is like ridiculous because I just promote loving yourself and I think that health is everyone's personal decision and we're all on a journey and I don't know I it's not something that I like to discuss especially on national TV because it's that's not uh, I don't know, that's not my platform. Like, let somebody else talk about it. Like, there are plenty of health gurus. Like, more people need to talk about, why people don't love themselves.
Exactly. I'm so glad that you made time for us because that is all of what we are about. I don't know if you had a chance to go and look at Heart Beings.
I did. It was, well, we've reached, a ton of people have reached out to us, but we really liked what you were doing and your website's great. So I had never, unfortunately, heard of you guys, but I'm definitely glad that I found you now.
I am too. Well, you should know. I'll show you this picture of my grandmother. Her name was Rose, and I wore my rose scarf today
Love
in
it.
honor of her.
That's one of my favorite names. I always said if I have a girl when I get married, I wanted to name her like after a flower.
So my grandmother died 1 month before she turned 100, and she was a fountain of unconditional love. And she would write me. First of all, she had to stop school when she was 15 because she got married and was pregnant, and she
Yeah.
had 9 kids. And she loved constantly, and she would call me her pumpkin, and she was big. And she would send me little notes that said, "From your big fat pumpkin." So
Ah,
she embraced who she was,
yeah.
even when many people didn't. And she would rock when she walked, and it didn't matter. She was just so much love.
That's what infuriates me is people just think that they can look at someone and tell if they're healthy or that size is an indicator of health and that we have less value because we happen to be bigger. We don't matter as much or that we owe it to the world to go to the gym, 5 hours a day or something ridiculous. It's so, and then I hear stories like that and I'm like, ugh, that's what people should be taught. Like, it's just so frustrating.
I think we aren't talking about the models that are size 0. They are unhealthy too. But
Yeah.
yet the industry seems to celebrate really thin people, and that's not healthy. And I love the way that you just love yourself. So take us back, if you would, to when you were young and you had the abuse in high school and in elementary school. When I heard one story, if you can give us some stories, I heard one story where people were shoving you into a closet.
So the bullying and everything started really when I was 10. My mom was shot in the head twice by her fiance and left her for dead. My mom was in a coma, and the doctors said that she would never walk or talk again, and that if she woke up, she'd be a vegetable. So I was 10. I was at my dad's for the summer, me and my brother, and when we didn't really know what was happening. We were told, but we didn't really understand that. I mean, my mom was 30, and I think now, like, I'm 29. Like, I can't imagine, I have my son, and I had my son at the same age my mom had me. And I always look at him and think, like, how fragile I think he is now, and then how much my world changed at that point. So, when that happened, we were living in another state. I'm from Mississippi. So, we moved back to Mississippi so that my mom could be near her family and they could help my mom take care of us. She learned how to walk and talk again. My mom's still paralyzed, but a miracle and a reminder to me. That's She always pushed me, and that's why I fought so hard. And in regards to the bullying, she brought me to school the first day, and she was in a wheelchair because my mom hadn't learned how to walk yet. And kids started making fun of me because of that. Because we had no money, we went from living a pretty nice life to living in a trailer in a cow pasture in my grandparents' backyard, which is fine. That's a respectable life too, but my life was turned upside down, and I just wanted to make friends, and I didn't think that kids would make fun of like, who would think that kids would make fun of their mom for not being able to walk. So, and then she was bald because of her surgery. So they thought that was funny. And then from there, it moved on to my size because I dealt with my mom's injury from eating. But I mean, I was already a curvy girl. Like, I've always been very busty. I've always had a big butt. But that's just my body. My mom's best friend would always pick on me and say, like, how curvy I was, and I'd be like, stop, like, you're embarrassing me. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with my body, but it wasn't until I was about 13 or 14 that people really started making fun of my size, calling me fat, rhino. I even remember they called me a lesbian because I had short hair at the time, and I like pretty much everything. They would wait for me outside of classrooms. They would shove me into lockers. They would send death threats to my house. And we told the counselors at my school, and they told my mom and I multiple times that there was nothing that they could do. So that went on until my mom decided to pull me out of school when I was 16.
Wow, I'm so sorry you experienced that.
It's it made me who I am. I don't think that I would. Looking back, obviously, I wish I knew what I knew now, right? Like, we all say that, but um, I I feel fortunate to have gone through those things because I tell you, the past 2 weeks has been pretty tough for me. So I'm like, man, I just remind myself that this is like a walk in the park compared to what I've been through. So
You wouldn't be where you are now had you not gone through that in some way.
definitely,
But in the middle of the pain, you don't know that. It's just painful.
yes, yeah, I completely agree.
So you dropped out of school at 16. It was your decision or your mother's or
Well, I came home crying my first day of junior year, and my mom said, "That's it. Like, we're gonna homeschool you." But then she realized I was too old to be homeschooled, so um, they let my school know that I was going to be leaving. And I thought that I would get a call from my counselor or somebody concerned. No one at my school cared that I was leaving. And I went to an adult education school and got my GED within 6 months of leaving school.
wow.
And never looked back. It was one of the best things that my mom ever did for me. I think if she would have left me in school, my grades were already so bad because I just was having such a hard time focusing. Um, but I I always wonder what would have. I don't always wonder, but I often think, like, what would have happened, and I I can't imagine a different outcome than the one that, everything happens for a reason, but I think that leaving was the best thing that could have happened.
So, how did you start to rebuild the self worth that was damaged from life?
I mean, I could tell you that I'm like perfectly fine now. I'm definitely not. But therapy, I've been in of you name what kind of therapy, I have been in it since I was 10. But I just have to um talk to basically the little kid and remind her that I'm not that person anymore, that um it's kind of like reparenting yourself is almost what I had to do. I had to, you know, constantly evaluate where I was and remind myself that I'm not that person anymore and that I'm stronger and I'm successful and I'm happy and I'm loved and surrounding and learning too that just because someone has that title of a family member or even a friend doesn't give them any access to my life if they're not treating me well. Being in my life is a privilege, and if someone is treating me poorly, then they don't get that privilege.
So, if you have any, this is Tess' take on how to love who you are. What would some of those tips be and strategies that have worked for you?
Um, well, first and foremost, doing things that make you happy, no matter if people think they're ridiculous. I, for one, love Disneyland. So Disneyland makes me happy. It makes me forget about everything. I can basically that be that child because I do, part of my childhood was interrupted and disturbed, and so Disneyland kind of just lets me be that kid again. So that's an example. Just doing stuff that makes you happy and really being unapologetic about it, not letting anybody make you feel bad if it's, no matter how weird or silly someone may say it is. It's definitely for me being creative. Has been a good outlet for me of expressing myself and also like being able to say like I created that, I did that, whether it's like art or makeup or my modeling or even doing something with my son that's creative. Because then I'm able to kind of, and I mean, you know, I think it really comes down to making sure that you're just surrounding yourself with the right kind of people. Um, and I never thought that I would be that person that said that all of the time until I realized how true it was. Um, you know, and then little things, I love to take baths and I love to, watch Law and Order reruns, which makes me happy, even though they're probably not the best for putting you in a good mood. But, it's just doing what makes you happy, no matter what that is.
And so, here's someone who's been injured psychologically. You're home, you got your DED. What makes you go to loving yourself? One, we talked a little bit about that, but then becoming a model. You always had a dream of being a model, and you always knew you were beautiful inside, or
I had saw photos of M, who was the first plus size supermodel, and I remember thinking how beautiful she was. And people used to always tell me I had a pretty face, and I remember thinking like, okay, but like, what about the rest of me? And I wasn't that great in school. Not that I wasn't smart, but just because of everything I was dealing with, academics was not my strong hold. And I was like, okay, well, I'm probably not going to like conquer the world. So I decided, why not be a model? So I went to an audition when I was 15 in Atlanta, and they told me that I was too short and I was too big and I would never be a model. So, I didn't let it, I mean, it definitely discouraged me, but I tried to not let it discourage me.
how did you get your modeling break?
I was 24. I went into an audition at the CNN building on Sunset. I thought it was a scam. And they asked me, a series of questions. I didn't know what the questions were for. They took some photos, and it ended up being for the face of an A&E TV show called Heavy. So,
Great. And between 15, when you got your first no, and 24, did you keep trying, or did you put it on hold, or what?
I kept trying, but I wasn't. My first job was an accident. I wasn't even trying then. They had found photos of me online and asked me to come in for an audition. But I knew that I wanted to do it, but I was really pursuing makeup because I thought that I would be able to do what I wanted to do doing makeup.
Okay. So you grabbed the skill that you had.
Yeah, so I just thought like, okay, well, maybe I'll get in that way. Like I'll be behind the camera and maybe one day I'll be in front of the camera.
And that's why you took the pictures and put it on.
Well, I had the photos taken for my boyfriend at the time and I put them on the site and then they obviously ended up getting their attention, but it was like I put them up hoping, but I honestly had no idea that, like, I couldn't have imagined that I would be where I'm at. Like I mean, I'm so glad I did. That was the best $60 I ever spent paying my friend to take those photos. But yeah, I didn't think that it would be possible. My strategy was I'll put them on and maybe somebody will care. Maybe I would like get to do a photo shoot with a local photographer, but I didn't think that my face would be on buses and billboards within like 6 months of doing it.
Wow, that's what happened?
Yeah, well, I became the face of an A&E TV show called Heavy, and so within 6 months, I was like literally on buses and billboards. I was in every major magazine. That was like my first job, and I didn't even realize what was happening. Like I had no idea. Like, and even at the time, I had no idea. So it was definitely, like a surreal moment, like seeing my billboard on Sunset Boulevard. Like I stood there with my mom and we had a moment and yeah, it was crazy.
That is really crazy. Good for you. So when you think about criticism is what started the pain when you were little. And then the criticism is continuing today. And
Yeah.
I don't like criticism and heavy judgment. And I can tell that you don't like it either.
No.
So how do you prepare yourself for the criticism that you know is inevitable?
I don't know if I really prepare myself. I try and ignore it, but it's very hard to ignore it. I just I honestly try and not read it, and then I do other things that make me happy. I also remind myself that what they're saying has no validity and it's not true.
And may I share something with you? I'll tell you a little bit about myself, just a little bit.
Yeah.
So I manage money for a profession, for a career, and I had to get everybody else's opinion. Every economist that came in had an opinion. All of my analysts had an opinion about what I should do.
Yeah.
So to be good, I had to hear everybody's opinion, but ultimately rely on my own thinking. And I think that's what has to happen. So if I could just give you a little tip, it's unsolicited.
Oh no, I will, trust me, I will take all the tips. I need tips for money and I'm like, just give them all to me. My accountant hates me, so I'm like, give them all to me.
So I think that if you spend time in the mirror, you might hear what everyone else says, but at the end of the day, what matters is what you believe. It's the most powerful asset that you have. It's what you believe, what you tell yourself in the quiet moments. And so spend that mirror time looking intensely in your absolutely beautiful eyes. And I don't know, I'm going to ask you a question. Like, I love who I am. I'm healthy. I'm a size 12. My hips are 43. And so I've always been curvy. And my son teases me. He plays with my fat down here.
Mine's bigger than that. I could knock an eye out or something with mine.
Embrace this because I have this little indentation, but I have to embrace all of me, just like you have to embrace all of you.
Yeah.
And that helps. So do you think about acting?
I had never thought about acting until all of this happened, and I have been asked by everybody if it was something that I would be interested in. And I remember like they're like, you have such a big personality, or you're funny, or you're this, and I'm like, whatever, I'm hilarious, but I just can barely like get through a day, so I'm like, man, that's one more thing I'd have to do. Like that's how I kind of, but I'm trying to be better about making more time in my life for things that make me happy, and because I'm a yes person, so I have a hard time saying no, especially if I'm really passionate about something, which often leads me in a lot of trouble because then I like overbook myself. But so I'm, with that said, it would be something that I would be interested in if I could say no to a few more things.
I understand. I have a similar challenge. I have a question that might be a little sensitive, but it's honest. Do you think about wanting to be thinner?
Um, I used to. The only reason that I would be interested in losing any kind of weight would be because I want to have another child. And I would probably feel a little bit more comfortable in my body if I was a little smaller, just because I'm like, man, I don't know if I like want to be pregnant at this size again. So yeah, sometimes I think about it that way, but um, I love the way my body looks, and I like the way I look naked, and I'm like, I don't know what it would look like if I was smaller. I've been smaller, obviously. I didn't come out of the womb at 270 pounds. My mom would have died. But I I love like my body so much that I can't imagine it a different way. So I go back and forth with kind of like wondering. And people recently have photoshopped me skinny online because they're jerks. And I saw a photo of it and I was like, "Oh, that's what I would look like." I don't know. But their photoshopping skills were not up to par. So I was I had a really big head in the photos.
I saw this one woman, I can't think of her name. She likes to dance and she's very healthy, and I can't think of her name right now, but she was on television and she was embracing her size. And the woman who was interviewing her said, "Is it inconsistent for you to say you want to lose weight and you also embrace your size?" And I don't think so. You have to embrace the process. Like, you love who you are now, and if you want something changed, that's okay too.
And like I say, everybody's health is, a personal decision. But with that said, we're all in different places and different journeys in our lives of, maybe some of us do want to lose weight, or maybe some of, we don't right now, but who knows? You might wake up tomorrow and want to. I mean, I think like, would people criticize me if I lost weight? Probably. But at the end of the day, if I gain weight or lose weight, it's still my body and my choice. And I think people need to, and that needs to be respected and remembered. Like we should all be able to do what we want to do. Dang it.
Really, I agree.